And now, to talk about our module of the week, let's turn it over to not Martin, but Jacob Rockowitz, a Drupal consultant and maintainer of a number of Drupal modules of his own. Jacob, what do you have for us this week?
Hi guys, did you ever need to review all the data in a field on a content type or specific bundle? There's a module for that. The field data module. The namespace is field underscore data. It's a very new module. I created it in February this year. It's in alpha releases. It's got a 1.0 alpha 12 release. It's actively maintained. I'm using it on a project. There's no security coverage because it's alpha, but it's not something you really need to ever really deploy to production. You could just use it on a staging environment. There is test coverage. The module's so simple, there's not a lot of documentation. There's just a README file and an animated GIF on Drupal.org to show the use case of it. It includes just very, very basic default settings to kind of adjust what type of field data is going to be displayed, meaning only published nodes and maybe only field data for the default language, because a lot of sites use automated translation, so you don't really need to review automated translated values. There's no open issues because the module is pretty basic. It's only used on 34 sites, and frankly, I think half of those are my own. The features are it adds a data so in Drupal core, when you turn on the field UI, you get a field list report. So you go to reports and you go to field list and it lists out all the fields on your site and where they're being used. And you get an additional tab at the end of that called data. When you go over to that, you see all your content types, and I'll even just go my own so I describe it properly, where it lists out all your content entity types and the bundles that you have, and then you can click on each bundle and see what fields are on that specific bundle. And the specific use case I'm using it for is a migration because I need to look at I'm doing a Drupal to Drupal migration. So I have an older version of Drupal, like 8, and we're doing a whole redo and we're just want to look at the data. So it gives you this report where you can go to a content type and say, show me all the fields, show me the number of values in that field. So you can find fields that are not being used site wide. Then go and look at that data, export it as a CSV, and frankly, the export is so someone might clean up the data or do some reporting on the data, but it's a very quick and simple way to just look at field data. I do wanna call out that there's 2 kind of similar modules. There's the schema viewer module, which is a very new module. I actually found it last week, where that just shows all the database tables. I haven't used it, but it just shows all the database tables, and frankly, I find that a little I'm using this specifically for site builders or site owners who just look at field data. They don't need to see the whole schema. And I've recently looked at something called the Entity Export CSV module, which allows you to like pick up a node and say, I want to export this data, but you don't get a review in Drupal and it's a little more requires more configuration.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Nick, I'm gonna give a little shout out because I'm doing this massive migration. So I'm just giving you a thank you for the migration boost module because it literally saved my butt. My migrations had like ballooned to this massive performance hit because of a couple of
Yeah.
modules, and that migration boost module allows you to turn off modules during the migration. So literally doubled the performance.
Oh, nice.
It was like 1 or 2 hooks that were consuming most of the resources, and I just turned them off. Anyway, let's talk about this module. I mean, it's what's your guys' opinions? I hope you guys are looking at the animated GIF because that just shows you what it does.
I've probably spent the last 3 minutes looking at the animated GIF just because 'cause I'm like, I don't know, I'm a fan of animated GIFs, and it very nicely shows me that I can, like, go into data, and then I can click here, and then I can see all the data, the fields where it's used and click through and, like, yeah, I animated GIF for the win. But interesting idea. I mean, I think that like this is super helpful because a lot of times, especially when you're doing a migration or like just like content work, right? Like you're trying to figure out what your content architecture needs to be in your, from one site to another. Like now you have the ability to say like, oh, hey, here you go. This field isn't used on all my content types, right? Or this field is used on all my content types. And sometimes, when you're moving from
Yeah.
site to site, that can be an important one because you're like, nobody uses this field. It's legacy. Like, let's get rid of it, right? So I definitely see a lot of use cases there.
I mean, it's great to really, like John said, just audit it. I mean, one thing I'm not sure that this does or should do, maybe it's a separate helper module, but one thing that I always run into when you're running like these migrations are the edge cases, right? I'm working on a big cleanup project for a client as well, where we're kind of trying to de-nest paragraphs as much as possible because we have too many. And I'm running into a couple of issues for a couple where all but like 20 and like and this has thousands of paragraph entries, right? All but 20 migrate completely cleanly, and finding the 20 that didn't is a little bit painful, right? So, and again, I think it's out of scope for this, but it's a similar kind of space where just like having a tool to quickly and easily audit what is there is extremely powerful because you know you can't build a migration without knowing what you're moving and where, right? And that sometimes takes the most time.
Yeah, I mean, I take it back to, like, when I was doing content modeling and, like, especially for, the last content model I did was for an intranet, and it was, like, legacy Drupal 7 intranet that had been used for, like, 5 to 10 years. So, like, there was a lot of stuff there, and I imagine that this would have made things a lot easier to kind of identify the fields that were used or lightly used or not used at all and kinda how they related and so on, so
There's a
Um,
fourth use case I just wanna emphasize, bad data, because I
yeah,
have used it. Because like, on the old site, someone they required a long title. They said, "We gotta have an extra long title," and then they had 20 records, and we opened it up, and we're looking at the 20 records, and they're all useless. People copied the same title over. It didn't really add anything. Something they
yeah,
like, you and also hints if it's bad data, maybe it's a bad content architecture, or we're not giving enough direction. They're entering in the wrong value, so it's also
yeah.
good for that.
Is there a good way to get to the content, like, when you're viewing the records and you're kind of getting that at a glance, is there a good way to get into the actual content where you get, like, to the node edit
Yeah,
page?
in the animated GIF, you get to this table view that just it literally is the field data table, so it has the
Mhm,
bundle, deleted entity ID, and revision ID. The
mhm,
entity ID is linked. It's blue,
okay,
in the animated
I
GIF, it's
see it.
blue, but I'm
Okay.
not clicking through. So you are
Mhm,
able to be like, "Why is this bad data here? Where is it going?"
mhm,
And go through it.
Hmm.
But
yeah,
trying not to get anything outside of that,
yeah,
like, keep it really because it would be nice, listen, you could show the entity
mhm,
ID, but the problem is then you hit a performance thing because 'cause you're loading all the entities and looking at
right,
Yeah,
this is very performant. This is like
mhm,
you can show 500 records and
mhm,
it doesn't even bat an eyelash.
yeah, because you're just loading the table data, right?
Yeah, and the
It's just
CSV
a
is the same thing. It doesn't hit
yeah,
any bottlenecks. I mean, if you hit millions of records, I think you're gonna have to give me a patch to do a batch operation for the CSV export, which we
yeah,
all hate doing, but yeah,
yeah. It'd be
awesome.
but I'm adding little features here and there if I see something off with it, but
And as our listeners know, you are a prolific module maintainer, so I'm assuming there are gonna be great things coming for this module.
before we end though, I do need to ask Jay, is this the only module you maintain that doesn't have any submodules?
yes. Oh, no, no, no. All I have a whole bunch of UI enhancement modules that are floating around here and there, and they don't
Oh,
ever because
okay.
they're not ecosystems, but yeah. And
Yeah.
by the way, the description's so basic, this module's kind of done in the sense of like,
Yep.
I don't know if we should be adding more to it other than yeah, it's maybe comparing options, when you have
Mm,
select lists, you wanna know how often a singular option is used, and that's kinda helpful in an audit, but
mhm,
yeah. But you
it's
can
not.
also export the CSV and build a report on that too. Like you don't need to do
Yeah,
that.
that was the whole point. That's kind of exactly it.
Yeah.
That CSV export I have found
Feel
so useful
feel
in
like there needs
common.
to be an
No,
AI
no, let's send it.
submodule here
No, no, no.
to send the data to the AI and let the AI help you do that stuff, but
Well, cool. Yeah.
we'll put a pin in that one for
Yeah, yeah, we all talk about AI every day. We're gonna be it.
Jake, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for
Thanks for
having me.
filling in. And if folks wanted to suggest a module a week or connect with you and talk about all the great things you do, how could they go about doing that?
I'm on Slack, J Rockwitz everywhere, but Slack is a good way to ping me or in the issue queues. On this
There you,
module, just use the issue queue.
there you go. All right. Well, I will personally see you in a few days, but
Yep, looking forward to it.
we'll talk again soon.
Hey, take care, everyone.
So there. Right.